You didn't know my name.
Do you?
Well, I do.
Did you mind? There you go.
You can introduce yourself. My name is John Rassler.
I think it's on. Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm John Rassler. I have been recently, I was gonna say imported, but I'm not.
Promoted.
Recently-
Or
I could be.
demoted.
Okay.
I was recently put on this board to represent by Supervisor Turnbull to represent the folks that live in District 2, which would encompass Four Seasons. It would also encompass Heritage, big community heritage, Blackstone, and all of the homes on that end. So that's why I'm here this evening. So.
But you're also a member, a longstanding member of APAC, so a lot of
Member
community
APAC.
connectivity.
I'm also a member, I'm not also a member, I'm a volunteer El Dorado County Ombudsman for seniors that live in assisted living and in memory care. And I just found out the other day, I've been doing this for 10 years.
Wow. Well, thank you for that.
I'm getting older.
Congratulations on your decade of accomplishment.
Thank you.
Supervisor Turnbull.
District 2 Supervisors, all South County.
I guess that's me.
Yep.
And look, I'm Mr. Microphone tonight. So John Davey, I'm the chair of the El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee, and we're a group of resident volunteers that examine and research proposed development products in El Dorado Hills and provide feedback to the planning process. And APAC has been doing that since 1981.
And I'm Lauren Sumimoto. I'm the student body president at Oak Ridge High School and co-chair of the El Dorado County Youth Commission. And I'm here to just voice and represent the youth in our community.
And she got a scholarship. Tell us where.
Well, I'm going to be attending Georgetown University.
Georgetown University.
Right. So we are going to have a little ceremony a little bit later, but that will come when we get to the communications from the leadership team progress reports. We're going to move that towards the front end of it. So, okay, so more to look forward to. I'm John Heidel, District 1 Supervisor for at least the next approximate 8 months. And then our Supervisor-elect, Greg Ferreira, is here with us tonight. So welcome, Greg. Make that acknowledgement.
I'm Cindy, I'm Supervisor Heidel's assistant, and I do the community information outreach for the council.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Guerrero, and I'm the director for First Five El Dorado Children and Families Commission and the Commission for Youth and Families in the county, and I am here to represent Healthy Communities.
And we have our guest speaker here, Maia, who come on very shortly. So with that, we also like to recognize committee and commissioners who represent the county as the supervisor, District 1's appointees. So with that, Raylene, why don't you just go ahead and start us off?
Hey, I'm Raylene Nunn. I'm District 1 John Heidel's commissioner to the Commission on Aging, and I'm also the senior senator for the California Senior Legislature.
It's behind you if you want to pass it to her. We might as well just stay in the same theme.
Tita Bladen, Commission on Aging, and I'm the senior assemblyman member for the California Senior Legislature.
Richard, please identify yourself.
Richard Ross, Commissioner, Civil Service Commission.
Very good. Tim White, you want to just acknowledge your representation?
Tim White, I'm on the El Dorado Hills Fire Department Board of Directors. I'm also a longtime member of APAC, and I'm also one of the 2 LAFCO commissioners in the county for the special districts.
Thank you. So do you see anybody else in the room
Bob
that I'm
Williams
missing?
is here. You can address
Oh
him.
yeah, Bob. Bob,
Bob Williams, Planning Commissioner.
District 2, right?
District 2.
All right, very good. So we'll put that tie together. Anybody else in the meeting room that I may have overlooked who's on a designation for District 1 or District 2 committee members? All right, seeing none. Who do we have online here? I'm not seeing anyone at this point. Okay, so with that, we want to thank you all for your service. Please hang with us. There's a lot to be done before the end of this calendar year and beyond, right? So, all right, with that, then I'm going to move to item 2, adoption of the regular meeting agenda. Is there anyone on the leadership team who has any proposed changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, it's approved as issued. Item 3, public comment. This is the period during the meeting that we allow public comment on any item that's not on the agenda. We would ask that you please get one of the portable microphones or the microphone that John Davy has, so that people who are participating via Zoom can hear you. That it doesn't amplify you within the room, but it allows our Zoom participants to hear you. So with that, looks like we're going to take some public comment at this point. And please voluntarily acknowledge who you are.
I was helping Andrew with something,
Oh, I thought you were giving him a microphone.
but I have a microphone. No longer.
Okay.
Properly speaking.
Okay, we're going over here, I think. Yes.
My name's Steve Mueller, and could you provide us some insight on how and who approved the 700,000 plus staff time at the county to defend a $23,000 case against the Austins?
I will address that briefly when we get later into the communications part from basically the supervisors. George may want to participate in some of that as well, but we'll give you a little bit of background when we get to that part of it. Any other public comments on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, seeing no hands being raised on Zoom, we're going to move forward to item 4. Our guest speaker, and it's my pleasure to introduce Maia Schneider. She's from Marshall Hospital, and she's going to share some of the plans that they have for opening in El Dorado Hills and some other activities going on. So I've kind of heard the presentation. It's really good information. I think you want to listen attentively because we are getting some great new services coming to our area.
I may need to swap mics.
Okay.
Appear to be lighting up.
All right, here we go. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Supervisor and council members, and good evening, audience. My name is Maia Schneider. I'm the Executive Director of Business and Strategy for Marshall. I'm here tonight to just do a little presentation about our plans for growth here in El Dorado Hills. And then also Supervisor Heidel suggested that I share with you some of the challenges we're facing a little bit further up the hill. So I'll be sharing a little of both of those. So to start, Cindy, ping. Spacebar, maybe. There you go. I always like to start these with missions, with our vision, which is actually really our cause or our just cause, which is that Marshall commits to creating a community where everyone can achieve their highest desired state of health and well-being. So we see ourselves as partners for people to access the care that they need and to live the life that they want to shape for themselves. Next slide, please. So who is Marshall? Well, first of all, Marshall was built by the community we serve. So we serve the western slope of El Dorado County, essentially from the summit to the Sacramento border, squeezing into Sacramento County a little bit as we can. We started as a small hospital. We are now a 111-bed acute care facility hospital. We have 16 outpatient clinics, primary and specialty care from Georgetown to Placerville to Cameron Park and El Dorado Hills. Our emergency room is a level 3 trauma center, which is a really high designation, especially for a community hospital. And we're very proud of the work that we do there. And then just to call out our cancer center, because we are affiliated with UC Davis, and just to dispel any rumors, we are not owned by UC Davis. They do not have any possessive interest in Marshall, but we have affiliated with them in our cancer program so that we can access additional services like clinical trials and virtual tumor boards and things that our patients would not otherwise be able to get because we can access those through a academic medical center. And how big are we? We're pretty big. We have around 1,600 employees. It makes us one of the top 3 employers in El Dorado County, and we have about 150 allied physicians. I always like to share these pictures to see if anybody recognizes any family members in them. But this is when our community raised the final dollar amount that they needed to build the original hospital. And you can see a little bit of the original hospital's form, sort of a cruciform building up on top of the mountain in Placerville. You can't recognize that building anymore because we've added on to it in many phases, but that's the original structure is still embedded in there. Next slide, please. So you might recognize these. The image on the right is our hospital. That's the main entrance to the hospital in Placerville. And the image on the left is our campus just up the hill in Cameron Park, and we have a number of specialty care services there as well as outpatient surgery. But what we're really excited about, Cindy, next slide, is tomorrow. So you'll recognize this building. It's one of the 4 Blue Shield buildings. It took us about 1.5 years, but we finally closed escrow on that building last December. We are going to be converting just the one building to an outpatient healthcare clinic, so a medical office building. And we're really excited about this. We're excited about its location. It's prominent. It's visible. We actually do have clinics in El Dorado Hills, but very few people know that because we're hidden in a business park and nobody really knows we're there. So we're going to do a better job about telling our story and being out in the community and engaging you in the services that we offer. Next slide, Cindy. So what are we doing in El Dorado Hills? Well, that whole building is about 50,000 square feet. 49,077 if you want to be exact. And so on the first floor, we have about 25,000 square feet to play with. And we have planned out the services we're doing there based on several years of planning and looking at where the community needs were and what we had the opportunity to do based on expertise and services that we can deliver as a community hospital. So we're offering, of course, primary care. We'll be moving our primary care clinic to that location. And then we're also putting our orthopedic clinic in there. But then we're doing something unusual. We're doing something that doesn't exist in this community, which is a same-day orthopedic clinic. So for low trauma orthopedic injuries, instead of going to your local emergency room and waiting as long as it can take in an emergency room, if it's low trauma, in other words, if there's no broken skin, for example, we can treat you there. We'll have x-ray, we'll have full lab draw there, and so we'll be able to see people the same day. And it'll be treated as a clinic visit, so your insurance can cover it. And then we're also offering a very large portion of that facility for physical therapy, sports therapy, rehabilitation, so that if you have had an orthopedic injury or some other outpatient surgery that you might need to have rehabilitation for, we can manage you there in that building. We hope to open in spring of 2025. I just walked into the building a few minutes before coming over here and demolition has started, so that's really exciting. And Rick Poipow from RCP Construction is our contractor, and that's handy because he built that building, so he knows what to expect as he tears it apart. Next slide, please. So I don't expect you to be able to make any sense out of this, except that I will point out the bottom of the drawing is the front door. The front door stays in the same place where it is. Then to your left will be physical therapy. To the right will be the walk-in clinic for orthopedic care. And in the back, we have primary care and our regular orthopedic clinic. And a lot of time went into planning this, working with our physicians. We got input from community members. And of course worked with a healthcare architect to make sure that we were making the highest and best use of that space. Next slide, please, Cindy. Thank you. So what's happening on the second floor? Well, right now we don't have any plans. We are convening with strategic partners to see if there is another affiliation possibility to co-locate services there that perhaps we can't do on our own, but one of the big tertiary facilities could do with us. So we're investigating that. There are certainly service lines we'd like to be able to offer, but recruitment is a challenge right now in healthcare for everybody, not just for Marshall. And so we're looking at ways to work with the right partners on delivering healthcare. We're also working with our board of directors, 15-member volunteer board of directors oversees Marshall. And then we did convene for about a year a series of 10 meetings, I think, with the El Dorado Hills Healthcare Advisory Committee. John was one of our members. That's how I got to know this young man, and just really excited for all the support that we got from that advisory committee. But, ... financing is a challenge. So I may have mentioned this at the top. Marshall is an independent, not-for-profit healthcare system. So we don't have Sutter dollars, we don't have Kaiser dollars, we don't have UC Davis dollars. Everything we do is by the margin that we make on the services that we offer. And in healthcare, most things lose money, they don't make money. So you've got to carve out what you can from operations that do bring in revenue. I know that doesn't make much sense when you think about your cost of healthcare, between the cost of your premium, the cost of copays, the cost of deductibles. But in truth, the providers don't see a lot of that. There's a lot of expense that goes out between you and the final line, which is us. So financing is a challenge for us on the second floor. Next slide, please, Cindy. And part of that is because of this. So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. I mentioned at the top some of the challenges we're having up the hill. So I mentioned our hospital was built over 60 years ago. It, like every other hospital in the state of California, has a mandate by the state of California to become seismically compliant. SB 1953 was passed after the 1994 Northridge earthquake. Show of hands for anybody that remembers that one. And that earthquake, as you may remember, flattened a lot of buildings in Southern California, and including parking structures for hospitals, and it was a very scary moment. So the state passed this law mandating that hospitals are not built only to higher standards, which we already were, but to the highest standards. So literally, hospitals have to be the last building standing in any community in the event of a seismic shift. That's fine, except that that came with no funding. So right now, all California hospitals are facing this mandate. The original deadline was way back in 2005, then it got pushed out to 2007, 2012. Well, fast forward to today, the most recent deadline is 2030. So that's the deadline under which we are all operating. There's a possibility that that deadline will get extended, but it's slim, and if it does, it will only be by a handful of years. Next slide, please, Cindy. So I mentioned all of this, I think. The legislation I was just referring to is Senate Bill 1432. Our senator, Senator Marie Alvarado Gil, was one of the authors of this legislation, and she's been very supportive of hospitals, which is great. But again, none of this makes the mandate go away. And at this point, over half of California hospitals will not meet this deadline. But I really want to point out and emphasize to all of our community members that Marshall has already met the 2020 safe and standing requirements, which means that our hospitals may not function fully after a major earthquake, but they are not going to fall down on anybody. So they won't collapse on our patients, they won't fall down on our nurses and our doctors, but they may not be fully functional. Because fully functional means that all of your oxygen lines, all of your gas lines, all of your fuel, all of your HVAC, all of the things necessary to run a hospital still have to be operable. And most of that's out of our control. We can only build what we can do on our campus. There are things outside of our control. Next slide, please. So what's it going to cost us to do this? Well, our current numbers are around $85 million. That $85 million investment will not bring us new services. In fact, it will reduce the number of beds that our hospital will have because of the way that we'll have to reconfigure the campus. It will not bring in new revenue, but it will mean that we've met the mandate. So financing is a challenge, not just for Marshall, but for all other hospitals. And so when we talk about not being able to build on the second floor of El Dorado Hills, this is the primary driver behind that. We have to sort of save our pennies and dollars for this. Next slide, please, Cindy. So just to put some equivalencies on here, when I did the math on this, it kind of took my breath away, but the cost of that $86 million investment is roughly the same cost as employing 530 nurses, caring for over 6,000 patients, running our emergency department for over 5 years, and that's our busiest department, or having OB available for 7.5, almost 8 years. So these are things that have true cost to them that we already offer, but it's prohibiting us from offering new and expanded services that we really want to offer. And that's a key message to our legislators. Next slide. So I won't go into the deep detail on this, but this slide just tells you how many hospitals in the state of California are really struggling with this. If you've seen large hospital construction lately, for example, the new tower for UC Davis, those are in response to this bill. So many hospitals have made investment. In fact, Marshall has spent over $60 million already meeting this deadline. So our new four-story building on our campus was built because of the seismic mandate. So we've already made a significant investment, and most hospitals have, but to get to the finish line is a big chunk of change. Next slide, Cindy. So all that's by way of saying that we were built by the community. We are here to serve the community. We may not be able to do all things all the time, and these are some of our challenges, but we're also really excited to be expanding services here in El Dorado Hills. And I just, if time allows, want to be available to answer any questions that you may have, but that's the end of my spiel. Thank you.
I know we had a great presentation about this at APAC, and I thank you again for being there for that. I don't think people understand the scope of the demolition inside the building. Can you describe that a little bit?
So when we bought the building, actually the first time we walked through the building, Blue Shield still occupied it. We toured the building, this is 2024, right? 21. So we toured the building the end of 2022, and we walked into a completely furnished office setting. Cubicles, phones, sweaters on the chairs, and calendars turned to March 15th, 2020. It was a little creepy, but that's the building that we got. The building that we got was completely built out as an office building. When you're building for medical offices, you know, when you walk into the exam room, there's always a sink, there's always water. Well, we have to have water. And in large office buildings, the core of the building is where all the plumbing is. There is no plumbing on the perimeter of the building. So we have to literally tear out practically everything except that which holds the floor up, and cut the concrete, install new plumbing around the perimeter of the building. So even though it's a medical office building, it's not a complex building, just the plumbing alone is really a huge lift.
I guess the other comment I want to make on the seismic requirements is, with my knowledge, the state of California imposed all of the new seismic requirements on every hospital throughout the state, independent of where they're located and what kind of fault lines they lie over.
Right.
So it's a one-size-fits-all that we all get to pay for, even though the probability of having a major quake in a Placerville area is relatively low compared to other coastal county areas, for instance, that we deal with. So it didn't seem like it was tailored to address the real risk, as opposed to, let's just impose this on everybody. But if we wonder why our medical costs keep going up every year, this is one of the reasons why those things happen.
Yeah.
So sooner or later, it seems like we've got to get to a point where the legislature understands that rural counties are not like coastal counties.
Yeah, it's an astute observation, and you're right. There is no consideration for the kind of construction of your building or where your building is located in terms of seismic hazard. I would also say that with funding, every hospital would gladly do this. There are certainly upgrades we would like to make to our building. There are cosmetic updates we'd like to make. I think the quality of our care, we can demonstrate that day after day after day with real metrics. But when you walk into a building and it's dated or it looks a little dingy, you know, you think twice about it. And so we've done a really good job of keeping up with the maintenance of our buildings, but we would love to have that $85 million and to put it to good use. But it is, as I mentioned, unfunded, and there are some hospitals that are predicting they're going to close. Some California hospitals already have closed in anticipation, especially those that are community hospitals, part of a large system, where the systems just say, we're not going to keep investing in this, we're just going to shut it down. Our neighbors to the east, Barton, they're moving most of their inpatient facilities across state lines. So they're going to stay in South Lake Tahoe, but they're going to be in Nevada instead of in California.
Because Nevada has no requirements like this, right? So So anyway, just changing times, I guess, so people need to be aware of it.
All these state mandates.
Yeah, part of it. So any other questions from anybody on the leadership team before we turn it over to?
I heard one of the things that happens is the first care to go is maternal care. OBGYN. Is that something that you've experienced as well, or?
That is such a great observation. Yes. In fact, I was looking at some numbers recently. I think it's over a dozen OB services in the state of California have closed in the last 2 years. That's not all because of this seismic mandate, but the seismic mandate is not helping. Some of that is difficulty in recruiting physicians and providers, especially to rural counties. Some of that is because after COVID, which we lost so much money on and lost so many experienced providers as a result of, it just became harder and harder and more untenable to keep services open that don't at least break even, and OB is never broken even. Marshall has stood strong on our OB services. We aligned with a new OB group about 1.5 years ago, and we've leveled out to a point where we're very confident in the services that we provide there. So we've not left, but other community hospitals have had to make that hard decision.
It's interesting. I just heard they're proposing legislation that requires them to do an assessment before they will let them go now, because it's such a problem that they're losing maternity care that they are trying to make it harder for them to lose their services.
Yeah, and that already exists. Hospitals can't just close down service lines. You have to get approval from the state to do that. What this legislation that you're referring to does is extend the amount of time. So rather than being able to close down with 90 days notice, it moves it out to 120 or 180, maybe 6 months. And I guess they'll look at it more strongly, but I'm not sure how that will help hospitals that can't keep their doors open. Yeah.
Okay, questions from the members in attendance here from the public? Anybody have a question for Maia? The Marshall Hospital situation. Yeah. Richard, yep.
First question, is the building that you are rehabbing, is it the one on the south end of the facility?
It's what I would call on the west end of the facility. So it's the one you see most clearly as you're driving eastbound on 50 before you get to
So it's on
Latrobe.
this end, okay.
Mhm.
A question comes to my mind. Given the fiscal situation you are relative to the seismic circumstances, $85 million before 2030, opening a separate facility with additional costs seems kind of counterintuitive.
That's such a great observation. Thank you for that. So I'm going to get into the math of healthcare a little bit and apologize if I get a little wonky. Marshall is a disproportionate share hospital. What that means is that we have a higher proportion of government pay patients than other hospitals. Why is that important? That's important because government pay patients, we only get reimbursed about 70 cents on the dollar. So we lose about $44 million a year treating Medicare and Medicaid patients, Medi-Cal. That's our mission, to treat those patients. We're a not-for-profit, so we continue. We're not going to stop doing that. But as a result of being disproportionate share, our payer mix, which is a representation of what your total percentage is of commercial pay versus government pay patients, our payer mix is not favorable. In other words, there's no way to get a margin from those operations. Our goal, one of our many goals in coming to El Dorado Hills, was to first fulfill our mission of treating everybody in El Dorado County on the western slope. And second, to try to balance our portfolio of payers so that we have more commercial pay payers, because El Dorado Hills is a community that has more private pay, has the younger population than the population up the hill. We might be able to turn the numbers around a little bit on our payer mix. It doesn't fix everything, but the more we can do to contract with commercial insurance companies, the better off we are financially. Because the dirty little secret in healthcare is it's private industry healthcare payers that pay for the cost of care for government patients. You're welcome.
anyone else? Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank Marshall for inviting the El Dorado Hills community for a year to come down and say, what do you want here? What do you want the building to look like? What do you want what services do you want? And you had a very good representation from people here for an entire year. One thing I just realized, I'm trying to convince you to have services for seniors, and it's not, it's Medicare. That's not in your, that's not towards your advantage, but I want to thank you for having that, to have the community come down and become part of this. So thank you.
Thank you, John. And we will be accepting Medicare and Medi-Cal here as well.
Very good. I'm not seeing any questions online from anyone, so just want to thank you, Maya, for sharing the good news. And we're looking forward to Marshall getting opened in about a year. Is that correct?
Spring of 25.
Spring of 25. So a little longer than that, but close. Because I think the services that you're offering are going to be a huge help to the community, and it's just got a nice enhancement for where El Dorado Hills is becoming as we grow as a community. So thank you for that engagement and appreciate the presentation.
Well, thank you for having me here tonight.
Certainly. Okay, I did have a special request from John Razzler. Since he's been busy all day, he would like to give his report on the El Dorado Hills District 2 Communities Report now and then head home,
Yes,
right?
yes, I would like to. I spent a good portion of the morning with DOT talking about Latrobe. The report that I want to give is a report that deals with the people, with the people who are in District 2 in Supervisor Turnbull's district, and also with you, John. And I'm focusing on the Gateway Project. The Gateway Project is a project, 64 acres, 14 parcels that are on Golden Foothills and Carson Crossing, okay? And this project is such a serious concern to the residents in this area that they actually asked the builder if he would meet with us, and we did. We met in his trailer that we jam-packed with people. On April the 15th, we had a meeting with him, and just to show you how concerned the communities are, we had Four Seasons was represented, Blackstone was represented, Heritage. We had representatives from the county supervisors, District 1 and District 2 were there, and we even had Supervisor-elect was also at that meeting. The Planning Commission was there, DOT was there. Only the governor wasn't there. That's the only thing. So that was a really meeting that was represented by a great number of people. The focus of the meeting was on the perceived increase of truck traffic that would be generated by, first of all, 2 planned warehouses on Golden Foothills that have 32 loading docks. Okay, now this particular developer develops loading centers that are geared to large trucks coming in, and they like to have their facilities close to the highway so that they could jump on Latrobe, for example, and get onto 50. It would be a 24/7 kind of an operation. And then there are future plans for additional 4 warehouses that could have an additional 64 loading docks. Okay, so you got 24 in the 32 in the beginning, and you could have a potential an additional 64. Now, according to the planning department was there. They said that they looked at the first 2 buildings, and because they fall into the guidelines of the business park, that they are what's called ministerial, and there's nothing that, there's no traffic, there's no CEQA, there's nothing. It's just like when you go for a driver's license, if you met the requirements, you get the driver's license. This developer now, because it's ministerial, he will get the okay to build the first 2 buildings, and he seems to be quite anxious to get it finished because he's been pouring concrete at 2 o'clock in the morning to get this building finished. Now, planning department had ruled that the project was consistent with the county traffic model assumption. And at the meeting, it was asked, well, did you do a traffic study? Planning department said no. They said that they had looked at what was called traffic area zoning for this particular area that was done all the way back in 2018, okay, when this area was only 1/3 developed. So they okayed, they said that this particular, these buildings met the requirements for traffic based on this study that was done in 2018, when this area was only 1/3 actually built out. Now, this raised some concerns and from the people at the meeting, and the Planning Commission promised that they would go back and take a look at these numbers and explain to people exactly what these numbers were and where they came from. All right, so they realized what they were based on. People didn't really understand what they were based on, and they would go back now and tell people what they were based on and how factual or how they really meet, this particular project. DOT also said that they would now go back and take a look at this project based upon these traffic analysis zones, so that both of them now are saying, well, maybe we better take a better look at this and give a better understanding of it and let people know what it's based on. When the representatives from the residential communities went to this particular meeting, they had in mind, look, we really can't do anything with the first 2 buildings. They're already pouring concrete for them. Why don't we look at the 4 remaining buildings, which could constitute maybe 64 additional loading docks? And they asked the builder, would you consider doing something else instead of building another 4 buildings, another 64 loading docks? And at that time, the developer said no. He said, I'm not interested in that. Maybe later on I would. And he did say, well, maybe I'd be interested in the other parcels that are around the 4 buildings. And that, in my estimation, kind of meant or led the meeting to go sideways. Because now you had people talking about something that really wasn't the heart of the problem. The heart of the problem was those 4 extra buildings. And now they're talking about, well, maybe we should put a water park, airport, and all kinds of things. So the meeting kind of ended at that point with the developer saying that he would go out now and speak to both supervisors and talk to them about this particular project. And at that point, the meeting actually ended. So that's kind of my report on this gateway project. The traffic, I'll just add this, the developer said that he was going to build a road that would take Carson, add to Carson, and let it go basically, I guess, north and right onto Latrobe, north and east. And they would dump all the traffic onto Latrobe at that point. They had no plans for widening Latrobe. And for those of you who traveled here tonight, if you were on Latrobe tonight, you know what the traffic is like when you go past town center. So that's where it was left. I'm open to any questions. Anyone has any questions that they would like to ask me?
Any questions of John of the report?
Good evening. My name is Sam Martin. I live in El Dorado Hills in Ridgeview. I have driven down Latrobe frequently over the last 13 years that I've lived here. It's a speed zone. It's a death zone. It is not safe. And so for a developer to suggest that not widening the road or doing improvements there at their cost, because they're using our tax dollars, I think is reprehensible. And for him to say no to you, it doesn't show any amount of cooperation. Has anybody been to the airport lately in Sacramento? How many people? You want to see what loading docks look like? Look to the right as you approach Sacramento International. I was born here. I remember when there wasn't a Sacramento International. I traveled there when it was first built, and it was out in nowheres. So if you're going to bring large trucks in here, they're going to have to commute, travel off of 50 onto Latrobe. That entire area that is the town center and everything else is already a nightmare to drive through in the afternoons. We can only imagine what it's going to be like in traffic. So I really would suggest that we exercise whatever kind of pressure we can upon the county and the Department of Transportation and everybody there to say, we need to take another look at this. Because this sounds like Pioneer in the eventual outcome, which was, they stopped their project. So that's my 2 cents. I appreciate what you're doing. You're facing a mountain. I know that, but when somebody says no, where's the cooperation? Where's the middle ground? And there's got to be some agreement to do the right thing here. Thank you.
I will just note that Supervisor Turnbull and I met with representatives from that area today to talk about what we do to get more transparency with DOT numbers, and in particular, ADTs, average daily travel, how many vehicles go back and forth on a daily basis, and what is the peak demand level of service. Those numbers are known, and I think part of what we're trying to address is, number one, speed enforcement and the traffic situation is gotten really bad, and there's not a whole lot the county can do. The Sheriff's Department doesn't do routine adherence, compliance, whatever you want to call it, with motor vehicle code. That's an unincorporated area that falls to CHP. And so we have worked with the CHP, and Greg knows this very well. There's limited resources in terms of who can respond to those things. So I see it all over. District 1 is complaints about speeding and running stop signs. And the unfortunate part is, short of having local control, I'm not going to get off on a soapbox on that, we're at the mercy of whatever the state can provide in terms of those resources. The one thing we've been told over and over again is we can try to help CHP identify when there's peak periods of violations. School gets out and everybody's going crazy, that type of thing. Then they can assign officers to be close by. But that's the reality of where we are. All that set aside, the discussion today was, what can we do to make the DOT numbers on ADT and level of service more transparent, so everybody gets to see the same numbers? Because those are measurements that are made with a certain amount of precision. It's based upon counts, and it's based upon measurements that are physically done for a peak hour in the morning and the afternoon in terms of what the demand is. Because a lot of people do not recognize what level of service F really means, or level of service D for that matter. So part of it is just getting an understanding of what our general plan contains in terms of level of service requirements. But one thing I can almost guarantee you is, in El Dorado County, with Measure Y that's embedded in the general plan, we're far better off than, for instance, the city of Folsom and what's going on in Bidwell and those areas. So we have a certain amount of protection with level of service definitions, but it's not free-flowing traffic lanes. So there needs to be more analysis of that, and that's what's been committed to by the Supervisor Turnbull and I, to work with DOT to try to provide more data and actual information, which can be challenged, but they do make measurements on a periodic basis. So that hopefully will help everybody understand a little bit better where we are down there.
Yeah, one of the big issues that I brought up and stuff is transparency, communication.
Yep.
And we were not getting that, and we're not getting the accurate, traffic counts. And that's one of the things that I said to Raphael, if you are not giving us the accurate, you need to do your research. And I just think I think he doesn't do a thorough job is what my personal opinion. And that's one of the things we have. And some of the projects that were taken out on the CIP, I told him we need to put it back. He said, well, we ain't got a funding. Well, you need to put it back. So when the funding's there, we could do it, especially when it comes to widening the Latrobe. So anyway, so I'm pushing that issue with him because it's a major issue because most of these projects are all in my district. And it's a big issue what's going on right now, especially with all the building and everything that's going on. We gotta address this problem. And when it comes to, the infrastructure, that's gotta be done first. None of these paper roads anymore. I'm tired of it. I'll be honest with you. So we need to stop that. So anyway, go ahead, John. You got anything else?
Okay, now let's kind of conclude that comment. Thank you, John Razzler, for your comments.
Thank you for allowing me to get my 2 cents in while I still have the energy.
Understand. All right. So let's move on to item 5, supervisor communications. And so Supervisor Turnbow, do you want to comment on anything? We could go back to the question relative to who approved the funding. If you don't want to address that, I will.
Well, biggest funding, on that, it goes back to other board members, past board members. It's put us in a situation that I personally don't like. That was voted on what that situation would happen with Austin and the Sheets case. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Background that a little bit. Not everybody is up to speed.
Well, the biggest part about Austin, it goes back, I think, to 2014, 2015.
2015.
Yeah, exactly. And the board voted on that issue and stuff, and past board members is what it was. And that should have been addressed right there. Actually, the county dropped the ball, I'll be honest with you, but we had Terry Daly, I think, was a CAO at that time. And I personally think she wasn't doing a very good job at all.
Larry Combs, but
Larry Combs, but anyway, so it's put us in a bad state right now, and it's just wrong that previous board members, put us, John and I, in this situation which should never even happen in the first place.
So who authorized the funding? The Board of Supervisors did, based upon closed session discussions to talk about litigation, which is a Brown Act requirement that when you're talking litigation, it has to be held to very limited conversations because there's strategies involved with litigation. There's all kinds of things. But the Board of Supervisors approved pursuing the challenge to the litigation. And the only thing I'll tell you is in 2015, when these things happened, I was a casual observer. I didn't get on board until 2017. So none of the current board members have any firsthand knowledge of what went on with Austin from the standpoint of the county's response. But the county did not treat any of the 3 applications correctly. And there's 3 parties involved with the lawsuit. There's El Dorado County, there's the El Dorado Hills Community Services District, and the El Dorado Hills Fire Department, i.e. County Water District. So all 3 of those agencies, attorneys got together and discussed what is the proper approach to this. Do we want to try to defend the lawsuit? Do we want to try to reach some kind of agreement? What do we want to do? And at that time, my understanding was the unanimous decision was we have to pursue defending the lawsuit, and there's any number of reasons why. And I'm not going to get into the details because, again, a lot of that's protected. But your question was who authorized it? The Board of Supervisors were the ones who authorized it, but with counsel and a lot of other inputs at the time. So good or bad?
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Some of the supervisors that are on the board now, and some that are going to be on the board soon, have been there since 2017. It's been multiple CAOs during this time. Why didn't the Board of Supervisors intervene between 2015 and now to correct this problem and address the CAO problem? And to the question about District 2's building, the planning department's got problems too. We need to address the CAO problem and the Department of Transportation problems. And I don't see the Board of Supervisors stepping up to address the problems in the county. So the question simply put is, why haven't any one of you done something since 2017 to turn this around?
Well, I wasn't on the board in 2017.
He said since 2017.
Since 2017. Anyway, that particular thing has not been brought up. A lot of this stuff is already done. And all that litigation was already dictated what was going on back there when they filed this lawsuit. So this is a lot of stuff, but I'm one person on the board. I am one vote. One vote. It takes 3 or 4 votes to change that decision or fight this decision. And that's where a lot of the biggest part of the problem is. You've got to have multiple supervisors, and especially support you when there's different issues that's going on.
So my response would be, in closed session, there's been a lot of discussion on this. What do we do? Is there an exit strategy? How do we resolve this? But we reached out and talked to other counties who were all affected by this Mitigation Fee Act lawsuit. We had gotten their support in terms of the pursuing the defense of the lawsuit. Several of them weighed in terms of our support. So there's difference of opinion in all cases, right? The majority of the opinion we were hearing from other counties as well as internal from our staff was, we have a good chance of prevailing in this lawsuit. Now that didn't happen, and that happens, many times, but I'll remind you that the phase 3 is where they determine what the net costs are going to be for refunding and how that refund will happen. So until we get through that, we're not going to know the exact amount of monies. There's some estimates floating around out there. And I've heard different estimates and they're wildly different. So I'm not going to get into that. But the bottom line is the county didn't do its due diligence in the 2015 timeframe that probably should have happened. There's any number of reasons for that. And so now what we're trying to do is get to the point of a conclusion that's as best we can achieve at this point. And if the judge says these are the amounts of money that have to be refunded, then every one of the 3 parties involved with the defense has got to define how they're going to do that. In our case, in the county's case, what I've been told is those funds would have to come out of our current Mitigation Fee Act funding. So if it's all determined to, well, it's not all, because there's 3 different TIF zones. So traffic impact fee zone. So that amount of money would probably have to be allocated based upon how much building is happening in each one. And what that means is we wouldn't have the funds available to do capital improvements. So we're going to have to cut back on capital improvements, which primarily are expansion of services. It's to allow capacity on roadways, like we just talked about. Those are the funds that are going to have to be taken away to do the reimbursements. Then the county's going to have to figure out how do those funds get reinstated somehow if we really are going to work on making continuous improvements. So there's a lot to be determined yet. So I just say, my advice is stay patient. We don't know how it's going to end up yet. Once we know the numbers and the judgment, then we'll have to define clearly for the public, this is what the impact is for the county. And I would presume the Community Services District would do the same and the County Water District would do the same, because there's really 3 separate parties, but they got lumped together into one lawsuit. So
My message is simple. I would encourage the 5 supervisors, and I wasn't targeting anybody in particular, to be actively involved in what happens at the county. The fact that this drug on since 2015 and the supervisors weren't actively involved, and we've gone through at least 3 CAOs in that time. The absence of
supervisors have been actively involved in certain cases. You just haven't seen it as the public because they're closed session discussions, because again, it's litigation. So
looking at a $23 million problem is a concern.
that's one estimate. So, okay, let's move on then to general items associated with the supervisor communications. So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and add yours first. Yeah.
All right, some of the situations that are going on, you heard about the Navigation Center. The Navigation Center is now, is going to be moved up by the jail is what it is. Something I proposed, so it's gone 360 is what it is now, so that'll actually be moved up there. Probably within the next year, it's already been voted on by the board. We talked about the pallet homes, would have been a good thing. The infrastructure, if we would have done this a year and a half or 2 years ago, it might have been already probably completed at that time. But since that, but at least it's moving, because we had issues, especially around the, when it comes to public safety, especially the safety of the employees that work at these county offices, and especially with the Navigation Center, where it is, and some of the issues that have been going on, is not a really a good thing. Especially these guys exposing themselves, especially when mothers are dropping their kids off at the library or coming to the library. There's issues there, and I've been against that from day one. I was the only no vote on that particular putting it there in the first place. So, I'm glad that it's going up to jail. This way it'll be more supervised. It'll be actually better. And that way it's along the bike trail and and all the facilities and everything in the buildings are gonna be there with the pallet homes. It's gonna be a great thing. It really will. And that's what they're springing up all over the place. They're putting up these pallet homes. I don't know if you've noticed that in Sacramento. There's some up in Chico right now next to the racetrack. I think there was like about 100 units up there now. So this will be a great thing because actually, especially when it comes to mothers that have children, actually they'll be more safer. And then in one big facility where everybody's at. So and they separate them. So it's going to be a good thing, and I think that's a great thing.
How many days is it supposed to be?
Well, right now, I think we've got, what is it? I think it's 80 something, but I think they're talking probably around 70 to 75 right now to get started. And they'll expand. The thing with the pallet homes, you can expand. And they got enough property to be able to do that. It takes anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes to put these buildings up. And they've got all the air conditioning, they got the electricity in it, the heating units, air conditioning units. They got even a place where you could hook up your cell phone. And then they got, some of them got 4 beds in them, some of them got 2 beds in them, and they got TV access and everything like that in these facilities. So it's actually would be a really good thing. And these things are springing up all over the place. And it will help a lot of these people that are, especially that are homeless. But the biggest thing that we need to address is a drug problem in our county. And that's one of the things that we're doing now. Prop 47, you heard that it got over 100,000, I think a million signatures, I think is what it was. And that's going to be probably going back on the ballot here soon because a lot of the problems with a lot of businesses, here's a good example. Walmart, last year alone, there was $1.5 million went out of there, stolen goods. $1.5 million, just our local Walmart. That's not including all the other stores that are around and all the other stores in the state of California. So people are uproar because you can go up and steal $900 or $999, and all it is a misdemeanor. It really isn't. So now they're trying to reverse that, get it back on the ballot, change it. So if you steal anything, you're going to get arrested for it. There's not going to be just write a ticket for it anymore. And we need to protect especially our businesses because businesses are closing all over the place because they can't afford to even stay open, especially with all the theft that's going on. So anyway.
The one thing I think that's different about the new facility is it would include housing for families. Right now, the navigation center that the county operates is strictly individuals. So the pallet housing and that sort of thing, which kind of surrounds the main building that would be there, were for family support. Where the other beds, I've heard 60, I've heard 80, whatever it ends up being, would be commensurate with the size we currently have, but we'd have that added capability to serve families, which a lot of people see as a big plus. Okay, so let me move very quickly through the supervisor communications here. Nothing new on Costco, although I keep hearing they're still interested, so stay tuned on that. I don't think that's dead, but we'll see. Town and Country Village, they're processing their draft environmental report, draft EIR, environmental impact report. So nothing there that I've seen in terms of new information that can be shared until that EIR is out for public review. AKT made their presentation, the J6 presentation to the Board of Supervisors on April 23rd. And then that evening, they made a presentation to the City of Folsom. And what I was advised is it was the same basic presentation of materials and stuff. It's 2,800 total acres, 1,400 in Sacramento County, and they have not submitted their formal application yet to El Dorado County. That's expected to happen in the near term. But the other thing I think we need to recognize is, in hearing of the comments that were made at the City of Folsom, that was not something that they acknowledged was a high priority for them. They basically said they have concerns on how it gets funded. It's part of Sacramento County. Do they want to seek another annexation to grow the size of their community? So there was, I guess, to say some hesitation in terms of saying, yeah, bring it on. So right now it's El Dorado County, I think is obviously in the front of where that all is. And we'll have to see what they come back with in terms of their formal application. So But clearly, traffic studies, a full EIR, all those things would have to be done before that project could ever be approved.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things is the Latrobe School District too, because that's gonna impact them a lot. And it's gonna take a new school to be built. You gotta understand, a high school today is anywhere from $300 to $500 million to build a new high school. And that's gonna have to be done, and I don't know where that money's gonna come from, so. I've got a lot of concerns, especially with that school district down there, because, I don't know, a lot of people know they're on well water. And before EID, any of that infrastructure is anywhere from 20 to 30 years before it even gets down that far. That area down there by the Rosa Ranch, which is my cousin's ranch. So, that's gonna impact a lot, so, especially that.
One thing I will mention, if you look at the maps that were presented for that project, it does include a school site. They talked about dedicating the school site. Development fees would come and be collected from the housing to pay for that school. So you're not quite understanding the full picture.
Well, I know, John, but
So they have done some planning relative to that. I'm not trying to.
With the school district, that's what it is.
It does
They don't wanna
create
be split up,
complications.
that's what it is.
Right.
Yeah, that was, I noticed the TAC meeting comments from the school district, from Latrobe, they only talked about the existing school site, they did not.
Right.
And they were talking, because realistically, as Supervisor Trimmer has pointed out, it's an enormous expense and, how long does it take to generate those funds to build the school site? I think we saw a little bit of that with Blackstone when that school was built, and then we hit a recession and there were no students to put in that school, and so that became the headquarters for the district. And then, it's a charter school, it was a Montessori program there for a while. And now, of course, there's enough people there. But yeah, the timelines on these things and how you pay for the infrastructure, if it's based on the build out of your project, it's not up front, it's the middle or the end.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of trigger points that can be put into development agreements and those kinds of things. We haven't even, entered the picture yet because we're not even at that step. So we'll see what their proposal is when they actually do a formal submittal and respond accordingly. So next one I'm going to move on to is Eldorado Hills Generations at Green Valley Road. And again, there's nothing new to update there. They're moving forward with their draft EIR. Good information circulated on that in terms of the number of homes that are being proposed. And I've actually seen one chart that presents what was originally proposed back in like 2015, and then what was proposed in 2017, and then what is being proposed now. So there is substantial changes if you look at the side-by-side views of where they started and what they're currently proposing, but that's in process. So as the draft report and other information, draft EIR becomes available, we'll certainly share that. We already heard about the Business Park District 2 stuff. So let me jump to the last bullet on here, and that is the 2023-24 grand jury report. And I'm providing this not to provide an opinion of how well I think the grand jury defined things, but to give recognition to the fact the grand jury put in an awful lot of effort to come up with their findings and their recommendations. And each of the appropriate parties have to respond to that. So for instance, first case listed, the transient occupancy tax, the county has to respond to that. And our treasurer tax collector has a portion of that. So she's already provided her response. The board is reviewing our response. So all of these items will get an appropriate response from the party involved. So the last one, 2405, the Eldorado CSD, controversy and concerns, demand change was the way it was entitled. But again, the CSD will have to respond to all of those findings and recommendations within a given period of time. And so that's what I'm waiting to see is what are those formal responses? Because again, it's a separate municipal services provided through the CSD. So people felt that there was a need for awareness, and that's all we're trying to do is make people aware of the grand jury findings for the relevant stuff, most relevant stuff for Eldorado Hills. There were other findings for areas that were upslope that I don't think anybody cares a whole lot about on a day-to-day basis. For instance, the Georgetown Airport. If you really want to know about the Georgetown Airport, that's in the grand jury report as well, but not many of us frequent the Georgetown Airport. So these were the two items that I singled out of the 5 items they reported on. And again, is to provide knowledge that the grand jury does a lot of work. They make findings and recommendations, but the responses are, I think, what people need to pay attention to. The recommendations are great, but I think what you're going to find is in a lot of cases, the recommendations that were made are not going to be ones that are accepted by the agencies involved. So, and there's reasons for that. So anyway, stay tuned on that part of it. And then last item I wanted to mention is the DOT gave us just today a list of the projects in District 1, and I assume there's one for District 2 as well, but I haven't seen that, of major repairs that go in with, and we're going to get to questions and answers right after I do this one. But it's Governor's Area road repair and surface treatment. There's phase 1 and phase 2. The total amount is like $3.25 million. The phase 1 completion is supposed to be October of this year. The phase 2 is supposed to be October 2025. El Dorado Saratoga Way turn lanes, that's $3 million to do the improvements on El Dorado Hills Boulevard where Saratoga is. The project start is August 2024. It's supposed to be complete 2024. And we'll provide this to everybody. You don't need to take a lot of copious notes. We'll provide it in the minutes as a link so you can get to this document. But again, it just came out today. Silva Valley US 50 interchange, phase 1A, that's $1.9 million, and it's primarily for landscaping the project. That's not going to be complete till December 2029. Bass Lake Road and Bridlewood Roundabout, this is one you probably heard quite a bit about. That's been estimated at $4.2 million. The project start is supposed to be November of this year, and it would be completed by December of 2033. So again, long-term project. And then there's a pedestrian safety improvement that is scheduled to be complete September this year, and that's on Silver Valley Road. We want to add a pedestrian crosswalk with flashing beacons to connect the New York Creek Trail from the east side to the west, from the west side to the east side or vice versa along Silver Valley Parkway. So if you're not familiar with that, that's where the CSD property comes in, and that New York Trail, I think it's CSD property, New York Trail comes in and basically stops at Silver Valley, and then it continues on the other side. This is to give you a crosswalk there with lighted beacons because it's not close to an intersection. So it's kind of between intersections. It's probably, I'm going to say, a quarter of a mile from Appian Way, if you know where that is in Silver Valley. Yep. So again, there's some definitions of exactly where that location is, but that's supposed to be complete by September this year. So we'll all look and see how that progresses. And then lastly, the Harvard Way and Claremont intersection improvements. That's to deal with the Oak Ridge High School circulation. That's $2.285 million. It's scheduled to start in May of this year and to be complete by August. So the whole push has been get it done while school is out, to the extent that all the traffic is going to be impacted by that. Get all of the things that are going to impact in a large way that traffic flow when the students come back done as quickly as possible. So it's starting this month and it will be ending in August. So very, very tight timeline. From the county's perspective, there's a signalization that's going to occur at that intersection, and there's improvements related to the signalization in terms of some lighting and other things. But on the Oak Ridge High School side, they've incorporated a roundabout design that our Department of Transportation helped them configure and define how that was going to go. So significant changes coming to Oak Ridge before school starts this coming fall, right? So be attentive to that. And then there's some other things of a minor nature. But again, we'll send this out via the minutes, and we're going to put it on our webpage. I don't know if it's out there yet.
No, we can't do the webpage right now.
We can't do the webpage right now. We went to a new and improved webpage, and we've had a lot of questions and complications associated with new and improved, what that means.
It's ridiculous.
So I think it's like a lot of things it takes getting used to.
Well, it's not working, yeah.
Right. Well, I went in there and looked for something today, and I was able to find it. I was able to find the CIP project I was looking for, so that part worked for me. So let's have questions on anything related to supervisor comments.
So one on the website, the links that changed for the county website that we had on the APAC website, we've updated them. So go to APAC and look for community links. Most of them are accurate. And then, yeah, it is different because the URL structure is a lot different for the new website. I had one go back. I'm trying to remember. I lost my way with all this talk. But when we talk about the grand jury reports and stuff, and locally here we're talking obviously about the CSD. There's an opportunity tomorrow night at 6 p.m. We're having an LED advisory committee. The committee members, my group that I'm a part of, we are hosting a meeting for the community to come in, and it's not the district giving the meeting, it's community, the volunteers are giving the meeting. And we're going to talk about all things LED so that people are informed, they know what's going on, understand, what it is, how it was created, what you're paying for, And then we're opening up for questions so that when people have questions, you can provide that feedback to the advisory committee. And then our job, of course, is to advise the board of the CSD about what the community's concerns are and what, where they think there are shortcomings and where things could be improved. So I encourage everyone to come tomorrow night at 6 p.m. and that is at the CSD Pavilion. But again, there's a lot of findings in that grand jury case. If you want to look at both of those, it's obviously Supervisor Heidel has it linked here on the agenda. But go ahead and read it as opposed to just hearing what everybody's, it's easy to complain, but if you go and look at what's written down and form your own opinion, and then maybe you can help improve what we're doing as a community in terms of how we respond to it. So I'll leave it with that.
Yeah, Bill.
I just want to say that, as some of you may know, I had the privilege and the pleasure of serving on 7 El Dorado County civil grand juries. I did not serve on these last 2 grand juries. That was a choice that I made. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that as folks read these reports, whether they're reading them here or they're reading them online or whatever, just to realize how strong and serious these reports are taken. The discussion that goes on in putting these reports together. Bear in mind that the grand jury meets over a period of a year. It is significant. So the discussions that go on with the grand jury, and then finally with the development of the reports at the end, it's a lot of work, folks. It really is a lot of work. So I just wanted to offer that to folks within this room and outside, that as you do this, realize that there are a lot of very dedicated people on the civil grand jury who have worked very hard for you. That's all.
Yeah, I was on the 2015 civil
Yes,
grand
you
jury
were.
with you.
Thank you, Bill, for your service.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
What we have tried to do is make sure that people understand the opportunity to serve on the grand jury. So we've put that in our webpage,
Good.
we've sent
I encourage
notices out to
everybody
people.
at least do it.
Because if you have the time, it really is an interesting process, and you really get to understand what non-disclosures mean when you have to have all these, very confidential discussions and they can't be talked about and those kinds of things. But it is a darn good process for government to be challenged, or an agency to be challenged for services that have been questioned by the public. And that's really what it comes. There's a group of suggestions that are made in terms of topics for the grand jury to review. As I understand, they go through, they kind of prioritize it, they select the ones they really want to target, they set up a number of interviews, they collect data and information, they look at all kinds of reports and documentation, and then they come up with their findings. What is it they thought was deficient in the process or in the actual administration? And then what are the recommendations? And to me, the recommendations are probably the bigger part. How would you go about correcting what has been identified as a deficiency? And they range all over in terms of magnitude. Some of them, any of us would probably say that's huge, and other ones you go, that's not quite so big a deal. But things like public safety, I'll go back to the Georgetown Airport, that is a big deal. And we're trying to do what we can there in terms of fixing that. It should have been identified a long time ago. But again, if you look at the way the county is structured, that particular responsibility for airport maintenance, county-owned airport maintenance and operations was really not given the visibility it probably should have gotten. It was in a department that had a lot of other things going on, and that was one of their stepchildren, just to be perfectly frank. So it probably didn't get the attention it should have until you get something like the grand jury report, and then everybody gets interested in fixing the problem, right? So it's how do you do it appropriately and timely? But again, kudos to the grand jury participants for their dedicated service to really provide that working capability to really get in, dig in, and understand what the facts are, and then present them as best they can. So any other comments or questions on any of the stuff we covered under supervisors communications? There was a lot there. And I'm not seeing anybody online responding. So let's move rapidly into our leadership team progress reports. And we always start out with safe and healthy communities. So Officer Brown, I believe, is here with us, so it's the CHP report. Welcome, Andrew.
Bam. So, hope everyone can hear me just fine. But we're talking about, I sometimes I sound like a bell, or like I bring a bell and I just sit up here and ring it. It's like, oh, it's Officer Brown's song. But I just want to talk about something that's come up recently. Some residents in El Dorado Hills have brought this up, and it's become a topic that we should probably discuss before we start really writing a whole lot of tickets. Bikes, e-bikes, scooters, motorcycles, et cetera, et cetera. Oh my, it's a lot. It's a big problem that we're facing statewide. Not so much here, but it is creeping into El Dorado Hills and El Dorado County. So let's talk about just generally e-bikes. So we kind of have a general understanding, most of us in the room or most of us online, of what an e-bike looks like. It looks just like a bicycle, right? It is either partially electric assisted pedal bike. You can ride on the road, you can ride on trails, and you can ride pretty much anywhere you can ride a bicycle, except for one specific class, which the county, if they wanted to, could control it or allow it on certain trails. And it hasn't become a problem, so thank goodness. Let's not legislate something that we really don't need to worry about. But these things are fantastic. I have pamphlets out there. If you have questions about these, if you're thinking about buying one, they're extremely affordable. If you can imagine, some of these bikes, they have a little battery pack and a little hub motor, and they can propel you and get you 20 plus miles at about 20 miles an hour. I don't know if you're going anywhere that's over 20 miles away that you want to go visit. Everything's within 10, 20 miles for sure. They're fantastic. They're extremely lightweight. They allow you to do a lot of good things. And we're promoting these. We want you to use them safely. And I'll cover that at the end, what we can do for training. E-scooters. We've seen these. These have come up. Same thing with these. They have a little battery pack, a hub motor, usually on the front hub, but sometimes on the rear or both. So e-scooters are basically anything with a deck that you can stand on, but it can also have a seat. These are to be operated per the California Vehicle Code, have to be operated by somebody who has a valid Class C driver license. That's a Class C. That means you can drive your Toyota Corolla on the roads in the state of California. That's a Class C. You have to have a Class C driver license to operate these. So that one on the right looks confusing, right? Because you think of that's your little Vespa scooter that you ride because you rented one in Cozumel when you were down there on a cruise and you visited and your buddy crashed one and it was hilarious. Okay. But that right there, that is an electric scooter. And if it was, and I don't know the specs of that specific make and model, I'm just using it as an example, how confusing this is getting. That has a deck you can stand on, and it also has a seat or saddle. So those three vehicles are defined identical in the California Vehicle Code. So if that one on the right goes under 15 miles an hour, the person riding it's over 16 with a Class C license, they're allowed to be on the road. No registration, no insurance needed, no M1 needed, and no license plate. Okay. But if it does go over 15 or does go in a speed to make it classified as a motorcycle, that changes everything. So here we are, we got some things that are familiar to us, but kind of different. So these are pocket bikes, right? That one on the left is what we know as a pocket bike. It's that little tiny motorcycles that maybe some adults ride and they look hilarious, but it's actually highly competitive, or kids ride around. And we have kind of what's a ranch bike or a paddock bike there on the right that Coleman makes or other Chinese companies make. They ship them over and brand them as many, many, many different motorcycles or bikes. You know that those are illegal to ride on the streets of California, right? They're unlicensed. They're not really defined as anything, so you can't ride those. Those are pocket bikes. Citation and seizing of those. They won't be towed, they'll get thrown in the back of a CHP patrol car and held for 48 hours at the CHP office. Now that one on the right is a Sauron. It's not Sauron like Lord of the Rings, the one ring to rule them all. No, it's Sir Ron. So it's a hyphenated or two-letter thing. The one on the left is kind of what you might get your grandkid to ride around your backyard or something like that. Or the one on the left. The one on the right is a Sauron. That's a pretty large, heavy suspension, electronic powered pocket bike. We're defining these currently as pocket bikes. They are not meant for any on-road use whatsoever. They do not have VIN numbers. They do not meet federal motor vehicle safety standards. They don't have headlights, brakes, reflectors, plastics that are tested, anything else. So those are defined exactly the same as this, okay? So when those come out on the road, we also cite those and take those, load those in the back of our patrol vehicle and take them back to the office. You come to the office, show the proof of ownership, and we'll release it after 48 hours. We want to make sure that we're also defining what's legal. So these are a couple of very street legal, very affordable motorcycles, okay? We all have very clear understanding of what these are. That right one, it's called a Honda Navi. It's actually a scooter frame, but they built it to look like a bicycle. Currently on the showroom floor, brand new, $1,800. That Sauron there on the right, almost $7,000 to buy. So I don't understand the appeal. That's why we're seeing these things in more affluent communities, as opposed to something like that's a scooter off the showroom floor. They're very expensive. They're very fun. They can go 40 to 60 miles an hour easily. So that's why they're very dangerous. Now these are electric motorcycles. Electric motorcycles meeting federal motor vehicle safety standards, tested by the feds, comes with a VIN number, vehicle code registration, or vehicle registration applies, and helmets and M1 endorsement applies, and have at it. Those are good to go, but they're very expensive. Very expensive. So this is just these pictures. I often give presentations. I don't have a lot of pictures, but here's some pictures about some examples of what we're dealing with. We want to talk about mainly these. These are not allowed on any bike trail, sidewalk, public property, off-highway motor vehicle, off-highway course. They're not allowed at Prairie City unless they got a green sticker, which on those two you can't because it doesn't have a VIN number. They're not allowed anywhere except your own private property, basically, or your friend's private property. Okay, you cannot ride them on the road. And this is meant basically for the people that are listening online and or people that might want to buy them for a friend or a family. Don't. We're trying to deal with it right now, and we're going to be starting to tow or not really tow, but seizing and citing these riders that are riding these specific types of vehicles. It's unfortunate that we have to do so, but it is one of those things that just pops up. So back to e-bikes. The California Highway Patrol was legislated, I think last year before, to begin this year a e-bike electric bike safety training online. So you can go to chp.ca.gov. Right there, it's the second banner that you'll see, maybe the third. And it's a pretty lengthy and in-depth online training about how e-bikes work. Where can I legally ride them? What do I have to wear? I haven't ridden a bike since I was 15, but I kind of want to get back into riding a bike, become a tourist in my own town again, and just get out there and do it. And this gets you some training. There's a reminder how to ride a bike. What are the rules of the road? What are the types of e-bikes that are out there? What's right for me? We want people to get out there on those e-bikes. We want them to get out and use what our local county is being able to fund for roadway improvements. It's only one of the most capital improvements is a bike trail crossing or a pedestrian trail crossing. That's what's being funded. So bikes and scooters are where it's going to be coming from. You have any other questions about motorcycles or alternate modes of travel like one wheels, hoverboards, things like that? You can find it if you just go to chp.ca.gov. In the top right, there's a search box. Just type in motorcycles or hoverboard, and this little quick guide will pop up. And you can look into, does my kid need a license to ride this on the road? look it up, find out. It's going to be right there. It'll talk about your licensing, what you need to get that taken care of. We're kind of focusing on an aggressive mentality when it comes to these specific bikes. You can go online, you can see Instagram videos and the like where they're actively in groups taunting, fleeing from, assaulting officers throughout the state. There's a recent one that came out from Southern California. Large groups of them are doing takeovers on freeways and or surface streets. They're participating in the ongoing protests and demonstrations that are going on. We're not going to stand for it up here, so we're going to take care of it. The sheriff and us are both on the very, very, very same page on the enforcement of these, so it's coming. But we want to make it fair game. If you've noticed, I put up a social media post this last week. This presentation is happening today, so the hammer's coming. Just fair warning. All righty. Any questions about this? All right.
Andrew, would you remind everybody sidewalks, none of these vehicles should be on sidewalks.
None of them.
Right?
Not right. So let's talk about like these. These can. El Dorado County has no ordinance preventing bicycles from being ridden on sidewalks. And then also these pretty much can be operated in the same place legally as these, except for certain bike trails and things like that. So, but having an understanding that by law in California, these can only go 15 miles an hour and you have to have a Class C license.
You have to have a license for it.
Any of those. Yeah. Anywhere. Or except your private property. Yes, we know that right before Oak Ridge's bell, there's a middle school that has a bell that goes off right before that. You can stand right there and watch about how many kids riding double on these things coming down the hill at way more than 15 miles an hour. Because I don't know a lot of kids that are buying these things that the companies really care about California laws because they can sell them across the entire world. They're being shipped and built very easily, and most of them go far beyond 15 miles. So once they do that, they kind of change what their vehicle type is. We're not going to really get into that, but the enforcement can change greatly when it comes to that when they're going.
Class C and they cannot go on sidewalks.
Yeah, Class C, those typically cannot go on sidewalks, should not go on sidewalks. I believe it's prohibited. I could look through the guide, but let me look specifically. Yes, sir. Helmets are required on anyone under 18 on anything like that, unless it's a Class C, Class 3. Then helmets are always required no matter what the age. And then helmets are always required on these, no matter what the age. Or under 18 for those.
So we were talking about alternate vehicles. So obviously you see these at the schools. You're not able to respond. Somebody's calling in at 8:15. I just saw a kid, right? It would have to be an enforcement then while you're there.
Yes.
Okay. And then golf carts.
Yeah.
They're parked at Safeway all the time.
Yeah.
They up and down Toronto Parkway.
Yeah, so we want to make sure we're defining what a golf cart is. A golf cart per the California Vehicle Code is an electronic or gasoline powered four-wheeled vehicle or three-wheeled vehicle. We can remember days when there's three-wheeled golf carts, but that can carry 2 people and golf equipment. So anything that's built for more than 2 people, 3 people is not a golf cart. Nonetheless, any of those vehicles are not legal to be operated on any California road without a license plate. They are not being registered by the DMV currently. You may see some out there that may have license plates. That's very, very rare, and that's a bygone era. And then also we want to also define what a neighborhood electric vehicle is. A neighborhood electric vehicle are manufactured vehicles that have seat belts, windshield wipers, headlights, those kind of things. They do come with VIN numbers. They have federal safety standards, and also they're slower, but they can be operated on a roadway, I believe, up to a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, and can cross up to a 45 at a right angle. But those are rare. For example, if you're down in Four Seasons and you're in a neighborhood electric vehicle and you want to go to CVS or Walgreens or 36 handles, you can't because that neighborhood electric vehicle is prohibited from operating on persons crossing, because that speed limit is 55 there, or crossing Latrobe Road because the speed limit's greater. So, you can't operate outside your specific residential neighborhood with those.
And also, and Mark will tell you that a lot of the CST trails are already tagged with no motorized vehicles at all. So
Yeah.
when they have the scooters, just keep in mind you don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Stay off the trail.
And then class one and two of these are allowed to be on bike trails, just face value. Class 3 are prohibited from being on bike trails unless the county passes an ordinance to allow them permission on specific bike trails. That hasn't happened. So I'd stick with class 1 and 2. You can pretty much accomplish all your needs right there. Basically, class 1 provides pedal assistance up to 20 miles an hour. Maybe it's 15. And then class 2, you can actually throttle electric up to 20 miles an hour, and then you can pedal beyond that, and it also pedal assists up to 20 miles an hour if you want. Class 3 will give you pedal assist up to 28 miles an hour, but no throttle, just throttle only. So it sounds confusing. There's some guides back there, but I do recommend looking into it. They're very affordable. This is where, if you look, every single major motorcycle company, in fact, even not major motorcycle company, is either building their own e-bike or they're cooperating with a sponsorship with another bike builder. Ducati, Yamaha, Suzuki, BMW, Honda, Toyota, they're all getting into the e-bike market. It's where it's at. So lots of good money to be made, I guess.
Any other comments or questions for Andrew? Thank you, Officer Brown. I really appreciate your report and the information related to all of these electric devices that are running down the road everywhere. So very helpful. Okay, so let's, we do not have anybody representing the fire department, I don't think, here this evening. Right? There's Moa.
Chief Johnson's there.
Did you elevate him to?
Yeah, he can talk.
Okay. Chief Mo.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through fine. So please share us what you can relative to fire service in the area.
Outstanding. I sure will do that. We are in the planning phases of a pancake breakfast. We haven't had one in a long time, but that will be something that'll happen down at the training center, and it'll be in support of our community emergency response team. So look for more information on that. Our hosted fire training program, which really supports the fire training center, has been very, very successful. That program really opens it up to firefighters throughout the entire state and multiple states around us. They come into classes here at our training center, and the revenue received from those classes offset our expenses and also provides for classes for our firefighters to take down there. So that's going really, really well. I think they're booked out through 2025 already. The Fire Training Center is being featured in a book called Calm the Chaos. It's a command and control book for the fire service, so that'll be nice to see that when it's out. We are hosting a Fire Explorer muster, and essentially there's 4 or 5 different events, and young men and women from the ages of 14 to 21 that are in a Fire Explorer program from all over Northern California will be down at the training center in June, and I'll send you all the information so you can come out and watch and support. And so that's going to be a really fun event. Southern California just had theirs. There's about 300 participants in that program down there, so extremely, extremely successful. We just launched a little bit of a teaser today on our Facebook page. It's called Kyle's Story. I think you just saw a lot about e-bikes, and this is really associated with that, and longboard, skateboard, you name it. But really, it's our kids and adults not wearing helmets. And so this is really a documentary of Kyle Benton. He had a traumatic brain injury secondary to a fall off of his longboard, and that story is going to be launched here pretty quick on May 15th, and we're going to do that at 7 p.m. But the teaser is on our Facebook page right now. But that documentary is very, very important to our community because, as you'll hear, it's not an isolated event. It happens way, way more than you understand. And it's not just injuries. It's unfortunately, there's been deaths associated with traumatic brain injuries secondary to not wearing a helmet on these bikes and different devices. We're working on a builders workshop. We had one last year, it was very successful, but that's really an opportunity for builders, both small and large, to come in and meet with the fire marshal and her team to discuss the process and answer any questions and go from there. Our over-the-counter process has been very, very successful. It's starting to get busier and busier. And essentially, if you don't want to wait to have your plans review, there is a not a long wait, but there's about a 90-day wait right now, and that's down from 9 months. So they're making tremendous progress. But the over-the-counter process is available Monday through Thursday, and that is from 8 a.m. till noon. And you can come on in and get your plans taken looked at right there on the spot. And if everything's in alignment, you can get your approvals right there on the spot. So that's been a great program to offer to the community, and it's been very, very used for sure. We're in the process of deploying a business engagement plan. We've had some challenges with respect to fire safety inspections and code enforcement in some of the businesses. And so we really want to work with everybody and get out there and give them a better understanding of what it is we do, what it is we're looking for, while at the same time working with the community to make sure that they are safe, that their patrons are safe, and that if they do have a fire, they're able to get back and open quickly. So that business engagement plan is something we've been working on for some time now. Chief Lilienthal continues to work, do good things up at the Office of Emergency Services. There's several different events that are planned through the office up there, and we truly enjoy our partnership with the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office and the Fire Service Liaison position. Lastly, Medic 86, that transition from Medic 89, which was in Cameron Park, to Medic 86, which is on Bass Lake Road here in EDH. That went very, very smooth, and 2 ambulances are now operating fully here in El Dorado Hills, and they both have been very, very busy. We're in the process of hiring additional paramedics, which is another line of employees or class of employees, if you will. It gives us a better pool of employees to pull from. A lot of them are coming from our own communities here in El Dorado County. So with that, I will stop. I'll take any questions you might have.
Any questions for the chief? Good report. Thank you again. Appreciate that.
Thank you. You got it.
And Sheriff's Detective Jeremy Buckman has been assigned to support our activities here on an ongoing basis. He had other family-related reasons why he couldn't attend this evening, so we're hoping that he'll be able to join us in the near future and give us that other insight as to what's going on from the Sheriff's Department reports and stuff here in El Dorado Hills. So hopefully he'll be able to join us next month. With that, I want to move to item the Youth Commission report, because my understanding is Lauren's parents are here. We want to welcome you. And so we did want to have you give your report, and then we want to do an acknowledgement and recognition of your service in El Dorado County. So
Thank you.
yep.
Okay, so to start off with the Youth Commission, with most youth-related activities in the community, when we get to the month of May, it's a lot of tying up loose ends and setting up the foundation for the following school year, and the Youth Commission is no different. The Youth Commission is currently in the process of recruiting new members for next year. We're losing a significant amount of our commission, including myself and our other co-chair, and so they're actively looking for new members. With the implementation of the peer advocacy programs, a huge priority for the commission next year is to get representation from Union Mine High School. We always have a large portion of the commission as members from Oak Ridge High School because we always have a lot of applicants, but we think it's really going to be a priority to make sure we have a very diverse board for next year. Also about Youth Commission, we reported to the Board of Supervisors last Tuesday. We primarily talked about the events and the projects that we worked on this year, as well as our plans moving forward. Primarily, we also want to keep continuing on working on the peer advocacy programs and to get this started in the high schools. Specific to Oak Ridge High School, we have appointed an advisor for that program, as well as they've recruited the class that's going to be peer advocates for next year. From my understanding, they had a meeting during a flex time period last week as well to be able to meet those students who are going to be acting as peer advocates and kind of starting the foundation for what that program is going to look like next year. And then in terms of Oak Ridge High School, the month of May is usually a lot of wrapping up and student acknowledgement. Last week we had the military send-off as well as the Student Achievement Awards, and I believe next week is going to be Scholarship Awards night. And then On May 23rd, there's going to be the senior parade as well as senior sunset, sorry. And we're going to be having graduation on May 24th. And then I guess just to close out, I just want to express how grateful I am to everyone on the community council, but specifically to Supervisor Heidel and Cindy for being so welcoming to me for the past couple of years. I've learned so much about this community, but also about the passionate individuals who sit on community councils and committees and commissions and really make things happen for the citizens of El Dorado Hills. And I've learned so much sitting in this room that I plan to take with me on my future endeavors. So thank you.
Excellent, right?
Mhm.
Learning is a continuous process, right? You learn more and more, and then you have to do more and more. That's just what it amounts to. So I just wanted to recognize Lauren's many service roles within El Dorado County because I think they're significant. And I had the privilege of actually recommending that she be considered for some scholarships based upon her participation. So that's where this is coming from. But Lauren accepted 3 specific roles in serving El Dorado County government. She started as being appointed as the county youth commissioner, which she's talked about, representing Oak Ridge High School. And that role, she's been very successful in helping establish several new programs addressing the significant growth in student mental illness resulting from the pandemic primarily, but other factors and workarounds to try to ease that situation. By working with the El Dorado County Office of Education, County Health and Human Services, and the Board of Supervisors, the Youth Commission has been a pathfinder in identifying needed services. Lauren currently serves as a co-chair of the Youth Commission and previously as vice chair, so I think that's still appropriate. Lauren also served the El Dorado Hills Community Council, our group here, as a youth advisor over this past year. In this role, she shared the community youth's perspective on mental health issues, county proposals that will ultimately impact our youth, i.e. affordable housing. Where's our youth going to live when they come back to El Dorado Hills and El Dorado County after getting their education? And emphasize the continuing need for better communications with our local youth. The third county role that Lauren is fulfilling is a member of our El Dorado County Behavioral Health Commission. She's the first youth to ever be appointed to this high-profile and impactful commission. The State Mental Health Services Act, MHSA, requires each county to have a behavioral health commission, and Lauren's contributions in sharing her perspective on the services needed by our youth has helped the county ensure that a full spectrum of needs is identified. Because that was kind of the missing piece when I served as on the Behavioral Health Commission is, but how do we recognize what the needs of the youth are separate from a lot of other things? So Lauren has served on numerous other state and community based organizations, including the California Youth Advocacy Network, advocates for smoke tobacco free policy. She's also involved in the AAUW Tech Trek, California Health Improvement Plan Task Force, and the Tobacco Usage Prevention Oversight Group. So Lauren is additionally involved with a vast majority number of Oak Ridge High School activities and groups, one of which is most notable being recently elected as the student body president. So she is definitely a high achiever in all capacities. And I'm not going to use the word overachiever because you always strive for a little bit more, right? Yeah, but clearly a high achiever in every way. She competes on the speech and debate team, where she finished in the top 30 in the nation, impromptu speaking, and also as the Science Olympiad team, where she championed in 2 individual events. So congratulations on all your great accomplishments. And we just wanted to show our appreciation to you in serving with the community council. So Cindy's going to grab something here, bring it out for you. And do you want to talk about your chosen university a little bit again? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to be attending Georgetown University, which is in Washington, D.C. I'm going to be a part of their School of Health, and I'm going to be majoring in healthcare management and policy on a pre-law track. Definitely chose Georgetown because it's an incredible place to be as a young person interested in politics and in law. So I'm really looking forward to the next 4 years there. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for all of you and all of your support. So thank you.
So please open your gift for the public to see, because we think that this is consistent with your goals and expectations that you're trying to accomplish. So anyway. Yeah, there's a hat. That'll go a long way to get the snow off your forehead.
I know who your mom is.
I know, she's got her, yeah, she's got the Georgetown.
You're already getting the bling, right?
Yeah.
So this will just add to your collection and stuff because, yeah, the weather conditions back there can be a
Yes.
lot more adverse than they are in California. So,
Totally.
so get ready for cold weather and all those things it brings up, but you just dressed appropriately and
Mhm.
drive appropriately. That's the other thing. Slips and slides on the side of the roadway are not to be encouraged. I've seen a lot of that happen when I've visited Washington DC in that area. So best luck to you and all your future endeavors, and we're gonna miss not having you around month to month, but your sister is going to be continuing, obviously, with her education at Oak Ridge High School, and hopefully we'll be able at some point to get her a little bit more involved, and so I think that's a family tradition, it seems, that's being continued, and so we also respect and appreciate all that, so.
Thank you.
Any other comments from?
No, I just want to say, Ron, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And you've done a great job, you really
You
have.
have, fantastic.
And especially being on the youth commission, unbelievable, and especially the topic you actually did this year, and stuff when it comes to suicidals, especially, and I had to deal with a lot of that issues and stuff in the past, especially a good friend of mine that took his life, and then also I talked about my grandson, when his best friend took his life too, just recently, so. Anyway, thank you for that. I really appreciate it, so.
And I'd just like to say, Lauren, keep my number because when you start your campaign, I'm coming.
Yeah.
Lauren for president.
There you go, yeah.
Start the
There you go.
campaign
Yeah.
early and it's been an honor and a privilege to work with you and to learn from you. You speak so eloquently and you lift the voices of the youth, and I look forward to what you're doing in Georgetown. And Mom and Dad, congratulations, nice job.
We know how tough your job has been, but you've been a huge success. We can tell from the results here, so. All right, yeah, Richard.
John, I'd like to say two things.
Yeah.
Congratulations, parents.
Yes.
For supporting daughter who has made such a contribution in this form and being such a visual representation of our youth that is constructively doing something with so much attention, is focused on such destructive elements that are so small in our society. You are a pleasure to work with, a pleasure to observe, and give hope for the future. Thank you.
Absolutely. So one more round of applause.
Everyone has to have a cupcake because I'm not taking them home with me.
Yeah.
Have a little celebration here. so
Celebration
pop those
cupcakes.
open.
Okay, so we're gonna move through the rest of these pretty, so, who wants to go next? John, why don't you go?
Okay, our APAC meeting this month is on Wednesday. It's 2 days from now. We could all sleep over because it's right here in this room. So we don't have to go anyplace. On our agenda, we have potentially updates from our transportation and environmental subcommittees, the standing subcommittees. And a lot of people that, we're putting this on our agenda every month. We want to provide the opportunity for any updates they have. It doesn't have to be a formal report. It might be anything to report, but we provide that opportunity because they're doing a lot of work, and I mean a lot of work. I get all those emails. So, and then the next items are more or less notification items, but there's some work that we're getting ready to do. If you're not aware, the draft environmental impact report for the Village of Marble Valley specific plan was released on May 1st. There's a 60-day comment period, and your comments are restricted to the environmental aspects of the draft EIR. We're going to go ahead and have that discussion here just so that people know what that it's coming. The document's out. It's hard to read. I'm trying. It's a little less than 5,000 pages. We have 60 days to get through it and provide comments. So we're encouraging members of the public, if they want to be collaborative with us and work on a project review, just to provide those comments, questions, concerns about the environmental nature of the items of the draft EIR. And that way, if you work on a project review, then you qualify to become a voting member of APAC, and then I could maybe sit in the audience and you could sit up here. So along with that, we also have on our agenda a second project adjacent to Marble Valley, which is the Lime Rock Valley specific plan. And that's a smaller development, but cumulatively between both of these projects, it's 4,000 homes, potentially. And they're both at the south end of Bass Lake Road, which is Marble Valley Road as it goes in. Parts of Lime Rock Valley venture into Cameron Park, El Dorado Hills Fires has some responsibilities there. Potentially, there might be aspects of El Dorado Hills CSD, Cameron Park CSD, however that sorts out. But you know, it's a lot to review. It's a lot to review. And these are the scoping meetings for these projects were held in 2013. So it's more than a decade ago that anybody had any sort of input on this, and now here's your chance. So we're looking for people who want to help work on the review. And if you don't, at least you could attend our meetings and become informed. And I'll put a cap on this, on those two projects, that Serrano Associates, who they're the primary developer of Marble Valley, and they're a partner with the Lime Rock Valley Specific Plan. They will be here at our meeting in June, and that's the entirety of our meeting. It will only be those two projects, because we're talking about probably upwards of 10,000 pages of documents to review within 60 days. Marble Valley, we have to have the comments in July 1st. And if Lime Rock Valley is released on the 15th, which we've been told, then July 15th. So there goes your summer. The other item on our agenda, the Bass Lake Family Apartments. And I'll read the description. There's a TAC meeting on June 3rd. It's basically, it's a commercial lot that's adjacent to, sits on the north side of Green Valley Elementary School, which is across the street from the apartment complex, the existing apartment complex. And it's along, oh gosh, wait a minute, Foxmore. Thank you. I was trying to remember the name of the Foxmore Lane, which runs down into the back of Sierra Crossing. So it's an SB 330 project, AB 211, to provide 100% affordable housing project of 124 reserved for low-income households, 2 manager units. So 126 units, 170 parking spaces, all right next to the school. The buses park. So obviously I'm starting with traffic as we look at this, but this is just a TAC meeting pre-app. But the elements that they're citing for SB 330 and AB 211 give them wide latitude about what the project's going to be and how it can be approved. They have a lot of rights attached to this. So I think at best, and technically this is in rescue, but I think at best it's right up against El Dorado Hills. We provide some comments to mitigate any sort of potential impacts as best we can. We want to work collaboratively with the developer on this. It's 5 buildings, 120,000 square feet. And the last item we'll look at is something we referenced a little bit tonight. The Board of Supervisors had their J6 pre-application presentation for the community for health and independence. We just want to let people know, that did take place, and it's, an opportunity for that developer to say, hey, this is what we're thinking about, and get some initial feedback before they make a formal application to the county planning department. We'll have a little bit of information on what the county staff supplied in terms of their staff report. A little bit of what the city of Folsom staff report said, just because they kind of support each other. And I think that's probably enough for one night. So we'll do that on Wednesday, and then make sure you're here in June. And in July, I believe we're looking at having Rafael Martinez come back to give a DOT only discussion in July. So don't take the summer completely off. And again, if you're looking to work on a project, if you have questions, concerns, you want to participate, our email addresses and are on the APAC email address is on the website, and our email addresses for officers are on our agenda. I hope that was enough.
First, as far as the first 5 El Dorado Commission, this is your tobacco tax dollars at work for families with children 0 to 5. We will be approving our last contract next week for the community hubs. We look forward to working with the Board of Supervisors and Board of Education to see how we can strategically continue the hub service delivery model in the county, and we'll keep you updated in the next year. For the Youth and Families Commission, which is a broader commission looking at all families with children through 18 years of age, they're a new commission just working on their identity basically and what they're doing. And I wanted to read to you what their mission and vision are. Their goal is to make sure there is no wrong door in El Dorado County for families seeking services, so that if you are looking for services, you have accessibility, and that they will have a coordinated, informed system that will collectively break down the barriers so that families have the support they deserve. And so they're looking at systems change, putting all the multiple places that you would go to for your kids with one single access point so that we can effectively reach families in the community. So both those commissions are moving forward in their work. Working on planning and strategic planning, so we can have that for you in the next few months. In Hub One, the community of Hub One, we're down one of our navigators, so only Missy and Savannah are there right now. We have another navigator on leave. Those are the folks that are over at the library. They can help support anyone through Cradle Rocker at our local libraries. I'm supposed to have data, but I'm having the same issue you are. We just switched over to a new data system, and I apparently don't know how to read the dashboard yet. So we'll have data on the services at our next meeting of what's been provided. And then the last thing, and I might be stealing a little bit of Cindy's, is just to know that the food is available. The food distribution is at Hills Church on May 14th and 28th. If anyone is needing some extra food this month, they can go to the church between 10 and 11 and pick up some household food. That's it.
Excellent, thank you. So Cindy.
Okay. All righty, this week, Mother's Day is coming up on May 10th. There's going to be, for the seniors, there's going to be a Mother's Day tea. It's at 2 p.m. at the Gilmore Senior Center. And they're going to get served tea and snacks, and they're going to have a fashion show. And the space is limited, so they want you to sign up in person at the Gilmore Center to reserve your spot. On May 11th, there's going to be the Powerline Bike Trails Community Cleanup Day from 9 to noon. It's the Powerline corridor off of Dorado Hills Boulevard, and the parking is available at the CSD's parking lot on Andrews Drive. And then it's just a short walk to the trail location, and because no parking is going to be allowed on the Dorado Hills Boulevard. So they want, it's going to be the CSD in partnership with PG&E and SMUD to help with the vegetation management and cleanup of the site for the future Powerline Bike Trail. So they're asking for volunteers to come out and help clean up the site and get it ready for construction of the trail. So it's going to be a great project. And then after you work on the Powerline trails, there's going to be the same day, May 11th, the Heart of the Hills Blues Blast. It's the very first one they're having. It's from noon to 6 up at the district church. It's a one-day blues festival. And it's going to feature award-winning national touring acts. And for more information, videos, and ticket information, it's on the Chamber's website there, the Dorado Hills Chamber. And then on the 12th, another new event at Dorado Hills Town Center. They're going to have a Mother's Day charity concert. It's going to be free. It's featuring Kenny Metcalf. He's going to be an Elton John impersonator. And that's from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Dorado Hills Town Center Amphitheater. And it's a free concert, but it benefits the Women's Fund Dorado, and they're going to take donations at the event if you want to. And then on May 18th, the super popular Youth Fishing Derby comes back again. It's from 8 to 11:45 at the Village Green Pond on Serrano Parkway. The CSD, in partnership with the El Dorado County Fish and Wildlife Commission and the Serrano HOA, they invite all kids from 3 to 15 to go out and fish. They're going to have prizes for longest fish. Trying to think, they have a couple other things, and then they're going to have raffle prizes. It's going to be freshly stocked with fish. Just all you have to do is bring your fishing equipment. You don't need to have a fishing license. The space is limited, so you need to sign up on the CST website. And there's 2 different times. You can only sign up for one of the 2 times because there's so many people that are signing up. The event is free thanks to the generous sponsorship by State Farm agent Nick Bertetta. So that's really nice. He's funded. And then finally, on June 1st and 2nd, the Assistance League is going to have their annual Gardens of the Hill fundraisers. You get to tour the private gardens of different homes in Dorado County. It's beautiful. And the proceeds enable the volunteers to enhance the lives of children and adults throughout our community programs. And to purchase tickets, you go to Garden of the Hills Assistance League. So lots going on.
Yeah,
heading
who
into
says
the
there's
summer.
nothing going on in El Dorado Hills? Every day there's something going on, it seems like.
No
So,
kidding.
all right. And looking at the remaining things, thriving economy, there really isn't anything new. Public infrastructure, we talked about the County Homeless Navigation Center. George did a little bit. And so there's information on that we can share based upon the Board of Supervisors discussion if you want more details. Workforce Excellent, I'll just say that there was an internal employee survey that was been produced And we're supposed to be getting copies of that very soon, and so I'll be able to share that. And that wraps that report up. So with that, we're going to go to item 7, council member items. Just a reminder that our next meeting is Monday, June the 3rd, right back here at 5 p.m. And next month's guest speaker I'm just going to say speaker at parentheses S, because I don't know if there's multiple, but Raylene Nunn will be discussing, and other members of the El Dorado County Commission on Aging, depending upon who's able to attend. We don't know who those are yet. We'll talk about their outreach plans and their topics related to the senior services and housing. So there's a number of things happening in the senior community right now relative to facilities, some of which Raylene hasn't even heard of yet. So we'll be able to share those as time goes on. Some of them started out somewhat conceptual, and they seem like they're getting momentum now. So once we get a few things more defined, I'll be able to describe to you some of the parameters involved. But it's exciting stuff that's happening in progress. So, yep, absolutely, because we recognize as an aging community of El Dorado Hills, we need more and more senior services and affordable housing and all those things that our outreach team has been working on with various activities and events throughout the county. So with that, anybody have a go back on anything? Okay, then we're going to adjourn at 7:04. We almost made it within a 2-hour time frame, but close. But thank you all for your patience, your attendance.
Please eat those cupcakes because they're going home with Lauren.
Yeah. Take a cupcake or 2 with you when you leave. Thank
They're
you.
little, they're just bites.
a bite.
They're just a bite.